Well, hey, on today's show, we have a good friend of mine and the host of the Florida Man on Florida Man podcast. We're going to have some fun and talk a little bit about conspiracy theories. Here is Wayne McCarty. All right, here we are with Wayne McCarty.
What's up, man?
Good friend and co-host of the Florida Man on Florida Man. How are you?
I'm doing great now, man. I'm glad to be here with you again. And I don't know if I hold the record as far as most appearances, but
you certainly do.
Yeah, I was talking to some folks on the street, and they were saying that I was their favorite. So I'm just glad to be back. And
yeah. That's what everybody says. Anytime I post an episode.
Yeah. It was mostly said under the overpass behind the joinery, but I mean, it's fine.
Oh, I love that guy.
I'm their favorite. Yeah. Yeah. So that's good.
Dude, you had actually the only one. Do you remember John Mott, who's been on? Technically, John Mott has been on 3 times now because the first time I just forgot to hit record. So he talked, and it was such a great. I don't think I've said that publicly yet, but we talked for like an hour.
It was his best material. He worked so hard.
Oh,
on
dude,
that.
it's always that way. It's always when you like never,
Yeah.
when you forget to hit record. He's just such great stories, and then I had to send the text of being like, "Do you think you could say everything the exact same way?
Just
over
run it
again?"
back identical.
Yeah, dude. But so yeah, you and John Mott, but you actually the most live at once this has come out. So
well, I'll tell you what, man, I'll have to race John for it, dude, because dude, I saw him recently in town, and he runs the distance that I drive to work and back every day.
He's a crazy animal.
He's
an animal,
dude. I respect it, bro.
There was one time we saw him driving. I don't know how to make this on an audio podcast, understand, but like we saw him on one side of town, and then we drove pretty far, like to the other side of town, picked up our son, and just turned around, and then we saw him again.
Yeah, he manifested.
And he just he just appears. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah.
What a skill. No one's ever
honestly,
said that about Wayne McCarty.
What
I'll tell you that much.
superpower to have if you wanted to be great at marathons. I can just appear.
Yeah. I start here, I finish there.
Yeah.
Dude, no, that's awesome, man. I do get a bit jealous. I don't like being on the outskirts of social things. And when people post their Strava, is that how you say that? Strava?
Yeah.
When people post that, I always get a little envious because I'm like, there's nothing I could do that would even remotely allow me to get into that space. I'm not going to post my walking path. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, but I love it. I love seeing what the guys are posting, dude. Like the guys that are doing, 5, 10, 15 miles a day. I'm just like, what else are you doing? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
I know. Dude, Strava is the most humbling. It's also interesting. We could talk about this. The amount of like oddball social medias that are out there now. What's the movie one? I just talked about it.
Letterboxd.
Letterboxd,
dude.
That's a new one.
Yeah.
But Strava has become like a social media outlet now. It's the most humbling too. Because earlier this year, I got into running and I was doing fine and I was doing like, good distances and all that. And now I took like a couple of weeks off. I got sick and honestly, I've just gotten a little fatter over the past couple of weeks or so.
Yeah.
And now I'm trying to run again. And it's the most like, my watch also auto posts it, so there's no lying on Strava. So it's like, you just ran like a 11, 12-minute mile or whatever.
Yeah,
it's
your watch is like,
hey,
you're struggling today.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, I think there's also this need, weirdly enough, for corporations to implement some sort of social aspect to everything. And it's not necessary. I don't want it. I know the other day, my wife and I were looking at some mortgage stuff, and we were on our mortgage portal. And it was like chat with other people who use them. I'm like, no, what are you talking about, bro? Not everything has to be social. Like, I don't want to know those people.
Did you ever watch The Office?
Yeah.
Back in the day?
Yeah.
Do you remember the one, just makes me think of it, because it is a good commentary on that, is they created like a website for Dunder Mifflin and they made a social media aspect.
It became a hub for perverts.
It became a hub for perverts. They were like, did they figure out the old... We're still looking into that. The old like pedophiles that were like haunting
hanging
Dunder
out
Mifflin.
at the paper. Yeah. Dude, I will say that, man, we experienced that on our show quite a bit where, for the longest time, man, with Florida Man on Florida Man, it was a boys hangout. It was a boys show.
Yeah.
And then, when Alina joined, and then Madeline and now Peyton and we have, of course we have other women who work on the team, but I'm talking mainly of the forward facing positions. The comments shift, right? So Josh and I can post a video and people will say like, "Oh, you're dumb," or "You're racist," or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, and it just rolls off your back. But I always get so anxious when we're posting about one of our female hosts or a female-led show because the perverts come out of the woodworks. You know what I mean? And it's like, brother, like you follow us too. You know what I mean?
Right?
Like, and we know who you are. It's not anonymous. Like, we can see your whole first and last name. We can see your family in your bio. Like,
what is it about like social media that gives people the confidence to just say the exact first thing that comes to their mind?
It's weird, dude.
Yeah.
It's very strange. The armchair experts on every topic. I mean, Lord forbid we quote the wrong street name on a headline and people are just like, hey, your whole family. Yeah, they're crazy, dude. And so it's tough, man. But dude, how have you been? It's been a bit since I've been on your show.
I've been good, dude. Yeah, honestly, I know we were just talking about it beforehand, but kind of made some moves at work, so to having like new responsibilities and all that, and another baby on the way too, which that's like on social media now, so that's
we can talk about it.
We can talk about it. So yeah, dude, just busy but good. You know, that's a place that I feel like I like to be. It's like it's busy, but I'm not like stressed out about it, and there's not something out there that I'm like, oh man, I wish I could quit this or stop doing this.
Sure.
I just enjoy it all. So
great place to be.
So yeah, that's a good place to be. Yeah, man. And then honestly, dude, what's cool, since you've been on the I think you were on the show the last time, you were very beginning, like last year. And then, which doesn't feel like it's been a long time since I've been on the show. It's only a little over a year now.
Dude, a year is impressive work, by the way. I don't want to detour you, but a year is insane. And it doesn't feel like a year. Yeah,
I know, dude. It doesn't. It in some ways, it feels like it's been happening for a long time. And then other ways, it's like, oh, I just started this show not that long ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then you were on earlier this year. But yeah, I've had some cool guests, some cool people to chat with. Yeah, most recent. I mean, honestly, just cool to hear from like different people's perspectives on how they starting businesses or what they're into.
Yeah.
Honestly, the last one, your boy Andy, he came on too. He was cool just to like hear his passion for movies.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah. I honestly, man, it's always funny to see when your homies go for it. And I'm fortunate to be in a position where a lot of my homies are, yourself included. I mean, you're building something and you're putting yourself out there. And when Andy started his page is like film, and movies and stuff. And I will say this about Andy is he's my only homie that I follow on TikTok. From a fan standpoint, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like I believe that creators should take care of one another and repost each other and help each other out whenever you notice it or see it.
But you actually enjoy his stuff.
With Andy's stuff, man, it's interesting because like he has a take on film that I oftentimes that I'm not privy to. And I appreciate that. But yeah, dude,
he's on another level, no doubt. Because when we were comparing our like love of movies, I was thinking me saying like Inglourious Bastards and Dumb and Dumber were like groundbreaking, and he rattled off 3 films. Like,
he's like, here's
from
this
the
Korean
80s
film
that I've never heard.
Came out in the 70s.
The first one, no, it wasn't. What's that famous Korean film that came out not that long ago?
Parasite?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, of course, dude.
Yeah,
so we're privileged in our show with our showrunner, Luke. He's a bit of a cinephile, and he's bringing me along slowly. He'll
the movie corner.
He'll take me. The movie corner is fun. He'll take me to the theater and show me some stuff. And recently, man, we went and saw One Battle After Another, which I can't recommend highly enough.
That's with Leonardo DiCaprio?
Yeah, Leo and Benicio and Sean Penn is just he'll get nominated for sure. And there's certain guys in my life where I trust them when they say like those movies good. You know what I mean? I know I'm gonna enjoy it. So, but dude, have you had anybody on your show talk about any conspiracies, any fun conspiracies that
No, and I'm glad you bring it up.
Yeah,
because dude, the last one,
every chance I get,
I feel like you and then Chase Wagner are always my guys that are like the conspiracy conversations. Chase will randomly like post me in something on TikTok or whatever that he's found.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the last one. One of my favorites that I know me and Chase got into for a while was the Beatles conspiracy. I've talked about that before.
Yeah.
Like it's old news.
About,
Paul's dead.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is a wild one. If you really go back into it, I mean, I don't know. It's pretty crazy, but like they were big enough to be like, if like so many people involved, like if we lose him, this whole show is over.
We got to figure out a replacement.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. So Wagner and I, if Chase is my gauge for how off the deep end I've gone. So if he and I golf together once or twice a week. And so if I'm with him and I say something and he goes, I'm like, okay, I'll back it
Okay,
up.
I'm too
I gotta back
far.
it up a bit, man.
Yeah.
Like I gotta, I'm you know, that's his friendly way of reeling me back in. But dude, I love it, man. Times have changed because when we got into the game on our show, you know, Sasquatch was a controversial topic, right?
Yeah.
And now that feels like base level. Now we're talking about you know, starships under the ocean and you know all of these things and
Well, dude, for some reason, I have been like over the past couple of years, I'm just so like fascinated with it. Not that I'm like an overly conspiracy theorist, but it just feels like it does feel like there's too much out there. Where it's
There's
like,
a lot,
it's so
man.
weird. And even if it's not an alien, I just want to know what it is, you know?
Yeah, I like talking about conspiracy theories in a way that is, I call it C-tier theology. Like, it doesn't matter. You know,
exactly.
To the end game, really, it doesn't matter. Like, and we're never going to really know, but it's fun to discuss as long as we don't get too terribly serious.
But that's where
about
people lose it, is when they think
Yeah.
it does matter.
Yeah, and maybe it does, and maybe I've missed the mark. You know what I mean? Who knows? And the pie will be in my face and not theirs. But there's some fun ones out there, man. I know you and I recently have been talking kind of freely about government technology and what that looks like, and whether or not some of the things we're seeing off the coast. And you know, in Florida, we popularized the Tic Tac drone. It was off the coast of
Really?
Jacksonville. Yeah, so it was a Navy pilot off the coast of Jacksonville that first saw
When
it.
was that? I know the video you're talking about, though.
I don't know when that video dropped. I know it gained popularity around COVID time. That's when I became aware of it. I don't know when it actually happened. But you know, looking back over it, I think now there's been sightings publicized for a little over a decade. I will say this, you know, just because of the nature of the name Tic Tac drone, you know, I imagined it being maybe the size of a car or the size of whatever. Now they're saying these things are pretty massive.
Really?
Yeah. And so I'm in the camp of, you know, it's American technology that hasn't been disclosed yet. And I have my reasonings for it. However, I'm open to anything. So when someone, I am a sponge. You can bring me a conspiracy that is just, hey, my whole family, I ruined things.
I'm going to think about it.
Yeah, like I ruined Thanksgiving with this. Bring it to me. Let me chew on this, you know, and I'll get back with you in a week or two. And I love it.
This is actually the perfect time of year too that we can equip people for like conversation for Thanksgiving, you know?
Yeah, be that uncle, dude.
Yeah, be that uncle. Dude, I don't know, the thing that was interesting about all that stuff coming out at COVID time, because if you hear, I'm kind of split. I'm kind of split on where I think that is it government technology or is it aliens? Like, I'm just very open to like, okay, what could it actually be? And I don't think that's a whole nother conversation we get into of how that affects my faith or doesn't at all.
I'd love to talk about that.
But like, the unique thing about it is a lot of the sightings that people will talk about happen when something very like unique has just happened, like chemical warfare or like, you know, like bombs and things like that. And then we see like in 2020, a lot of these like sightings are coming up and a lot of the conversation is. And like, there's just that wonder in me of like, oh, if it was extraterrestrial, are they watching us to see how do we react when a mass pandemic happens?
I think so.
You know what I mean?
I think so. I think they're looking at us as a bit of a, if that's the case,
experiment.
Or a bit of a zoo, perhaps. And you know, if they have the capability of traveling this far to witness us, then they know better than to interact. You know what I mean? I think we are a penal colony. You know what I mean? To some degree, I think they probably look at us going, "Don't mess with them." You know, we are the Florida of the universe. They probably look at Earth and go, "Nah, man."
That's right. Yeah.
The moment we show up, they're going to nuke us, and then you know the whole planet's whatever. So. But I will say this, dude, as far as when it comes to aliens and faith and that discussion, some really good friends of mine have a show out in LA, called Keep It Weird. And they,
you told me about them. Yeah.
They're great gals. And they cover this kind of stuff every week, week in and week out, they cover it. Yeah. And they can run circles around me. But there was this thing, called Bet's Sphere in Florida. And it was this metallic ball that was just no entry point, no exit, just a giant ball bearing that would hum and cause people great distress. And they found it behind this, like, not too far from a U.S. airbase. And this woman kind of just brings it home. And the government shows up and is like, you can't have that, actually. We're going to take it. Dude, this was like in the 60s. This is like a long time ago.
You just can't have that.
You just can't have that. And And so I always think about this when you watch Oppenheimer or read Oppenheimer, and you see the work they put in to make the atom bomb, to make something that did not exist. It was theoretically, impossible. Then all of a sudden it was possible. We didn't stop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we didn't just go, oh, hey, great job, everybody. Let's dap it up. We beat the Nazis. Everybody take care. No, we recruited Nazis and then we made more stuff.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's almost 100 years ago now. So of course.
Yeah. That is it's 100% the more likely scenario is that there's just so much tech out there that we literally have no idea about. That's actually possible.
That feels more believable to me than another species finding us and teasing us with little drones,
Yeah. And it makes sense too, dude. Just like of what is possibly out there. That's why you see those videos of like the big thing of like, why would the government not want us to know about this conversation? Like not want us to know about like the type of tech and the type of things that are possible. And then also realizing of like the industries that would collapse if something. I saw this video the day of this dude in Atlanta that like created like, it was basically, he was fueling a car with water.
Yeah.
And all the comments were like, you better protect that guy. Like, like hide him at all costs.
Yeah.
Like
if you're on a plane that he's on,
he's about to disappear.
Yeah. Get off the plane. Yeah. I saw that guy, man. And apparently he figured out how to turn plastic into fuel. Which
that was it. Yeah.
Which is not a new technology. However, the way he's doing it, you use significantly less plastic to make the volume of fuel, which that's new.
Yeah.
And so, it's not looking good for him. And I think when it comes to fuel and how the world economy is tied to fuel, you're dead right, man. Because the moment you show people that we have some kind of propulsion that could also power your house for free, people take to the streets.
Oh,
why are we paying for power if you have this technology,
dude? Yeah,
and then the world economy would collapse.
Oh, the industries that could fall if we could do things like heating our home, if we could cook food, if all of that sort of stuff, water, all this stuff, like having the access to that just cost us nothing.
Yeah,
like the type of industries that would fall down would be massive.
Yeah, dude. And so, but I would love to ask you that, man, because on the topic of extraterrestrial life and faith, that feels like something that neither one of us are qualified to discuss, but it's fun to talk about.
100%.
And on the subject matter of faith, you so more than me. But I think that I'm interested to hear your opinion on should disclosure come tomorrow, right? Let's say that Donnie Trump gets up there and just goes, "Hey, here's this race of 8 foot tall, blue folk, and they want to meet with you." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What does that conversation then look like for the church as a whole?
Yeah, I'll answer this in two ways because I do think there's two possibilities, right? Of like one. I'll save that one for a second of like, okay, we discovered that the blue people are real and like now they're among us, so that's the second one. The first one being, which is probably the more likely answer of there's just a lot of unexplained things and it may not be extraterrestrial. There's actually, to give credit where credit's due, there's a really cool show called Haunted Cosmos. I think I've chatted with you about that one before. And these guys started it a couple years ago. Shout out to them. If you're listening to this, you should check out their show. They do some cool stuff, but these guys are like pastors or former pastors and they talk about like the extraterrestrial and then explain it to our faith. And it's a fun show too. So they're a great listen, but I love what they talk about because there's things that they bring up like Skinwalker Ranch. Have you seen that documentary?
Right. Yep.
Crazy stuff.
Yep.
There's from like extraterrestrial to ghosts to like, what do you call them? The people who change, whatever.
Like skin changers. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that what they're called? Skinwalkers?
Skinwalkers.
Okay. Yeah. So like all these sort of things. Their thing is it really comes down to more of like if as a person of faith, we do ultimately believe in the reality of like, as there is a heavenly and an angelic, there is also like a hell and a demonic. And so like, I think if I remember right, like their thing with Skinwalker Ranch was you kind of go back generations and generations and who occupied that land before then was certainly like the Native American people. And this is not an indictment against the Native American people, but there more than likely were a lot of false gods, like, worshipped on that land or rituals and things like that probably would go against what we would certainly go against, like what a Christian believes. And so I think their thing was more so leaning towards, hey, there's just like generations of it kind of becomes the question of, could a land be cursed? You know what I mean? Or could there be like a demonic activity that's just tied because it's been happening at a place for so long? And that's where I could kind of see there's some other like interesting stories they bring up too, like the Mothman. It's like that happening in a certain area, but it's also, is it more so connected to this being a phenomenon or what's happening to people who may be far from God, you know?
Yeah, man. I mean, dude. Well, so you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if that were the case, it would be, maybe you would say it would be a spiritual entity and not necessarily extraterrestrial.
Yeah. So in that first one, I think there's the reality to where this could be so much more like a spiritual thing, you know? Now, some of the stuff that we talk about with like seeing drones in the sky and all that sort of stuff, I think that probably falls more under the technology sort of stuff. But then some of the more like, oh, I like saw a being, or I saw like something that was less of a spacecraft or whatever, you know? Those probably being a little bit more on like the demonic or spiritual side of things. Now, the other side of it is like, let's say tomorrow we do see blue people that come down to earth and Trump's announcing them on TV or whatever.
Yeah.
I think I not to say that it would not be hard to understand, but I do believe in, like, from the faith that I've had as a Christian, like, I think there's so much of God that I don't understand.
Of course.
You know what I mean? And so I don't know if it would get me to a place where I'm just like, okay, now, like, I've already accepted that there's so much of God and his greatness and his goodness and what he's done and created that I just don't understand. This could be another part of what I just don't understand yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I mean, it's such a massive hypothetical, isn't it? I mean, I think how far we've come with conspiracy theories and technology and such, that discussing spacecraft that probably is definitely American tech or, foreign tech, worst case scenario for the folks who are scared of that kind of stuff. That's not even a controversial topic anymore. That's just mainstream, right? So I think in order to get into the depths of conspiracy, I think you have to add the spiritual element to it, in my opinion, because it's something that we often don't talk about too frequently. And I agree with you in the sense that I think the land remembers trauma. I think the land remembers tragedy. On our show, we're in Halloween season, so we tend to lean into this a little bit. And we talk about how in areas where there have been great battles or great oppression, that's a great way to say it. There's an increase of morbid tales of that nature. So for example, there's this island up in North Florida where it had a lot of indentured servants and slavery and all these terrible things happen on this island. And then when you compare the amount of like ghost sightings, I say ghost in quotations, but ghost sightings there compared to elsewhere in the area, it's 3 to 1.
Yeah. Well, dude, and I feel like there's a lot of places coming from South Georgia too, where obviously if you look at our nation's history, slavery was pretty predominant in that area. And there's places like old plantations and things like that tend to be more haunted. Yeah. And there's places of oppression and darkness that have just been sitting there for so long. Yeah, and zero chance that blue people show up and we don't have them arrested immediately. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to get out in front of that. The idea of us having a joint press conference is absurd. But also, and this may be a whole nother deep conversation, but I thought of that when you brought that up. Like, how does this, if we saw blue people and like these aliens exist, and then we also are believing Christians, like, how does that rock us? You know, like our base text for what we believe about God is the Bible, and so much of it does come. I do believe the Bible being an inspired word of God, but I also, I'm not a theologian, but there are people out there that would say, it's inspired through man that wrote it down and gave it to us, and so it's like this account. You know what I mean? Who's to say that? I don't know. Yeah, man, we don't know. Were there other places? Were there other worlds? C-tier theology. Dude, you know crazy. What I mean? It doesn't matter. Don't take any of this to your local pastor. Yeah. Listen, don't take anything I say for any. No, but I do think that oftentimes people are afraid to say, I don't know. You know what 100%. I mean? They're afraid to say, I don't know. And I've been guilty of that. I think when it comes to this, I have conversations with folks of all different walks of life and different faiths. And I think
everybody, for the most part, is kind of in agreement that it's possible that there's something more, there's something else out there that we don't understand, and sometimes those things can affect us, unfortunately. Yeah, you know, now I will say this: I don't think. Now, when it comes to demonic activity and when it comes to it being aliens or whatever, you know, I don't know how that sits with me as far as the physical manifestation of that. You know what I mean? It's a pretty great hypothetical. But I will say this: I think that we live in a day and age where there's just so much information and there's so much readily available, yet we still don't feel any closer to any kind of disclosure. You know what I mean? Like it almost feels like there's just so much floating around as a distraction. But I've talked to folks who don't necessarily openly have a faith background, and they share scenarios of alien abductions is the term they would use. But in these stories, they would call out, you know, to Jesus. And then the abduction would stop. And I find that fascinating. And I can't prove this. This is all hearsay. These are all stories that I'm just sharing, you know, fourth, fifth hand. However, I as a believer myself, I find that interesting, and I do think that unfortunately there are presences, this present darkness. You know, there are entities at play that we just don't quite understand.
For sure, yeah, dude. And I've heard stories of, you know, people with sleep paralysis, or even like there's a friend of ours that had the story of, like, in college, she just kind of woke up but couldn't move, and I think this was honestly a form of sleep paralysis, but couldn't move her body, but then felt like something like on her, like it was like crawling up her, and she looked down, there was nothing, but she had this feeling, you know, and then called out the name of Jesus, and it stopped. And so I do think in a way there's a uniqueness to what those people experience, and then what's to say there isn't some sort of demonic or maybe and less than aliens or whatever, like a more explainable reason of what these people are feeling, are experiencing, and there is power in the name of Jesus that actually changes that scenario, you know?
And I agree with that. And I would say for your listeners who maybe aren't believers, a fun rabbit trail is Aleister Crowley, who I think was in the 40s. He illustrated these beings that he was speaking to. And the way he described them, the way he described the interactions, for me, sounded like the traditional demonic stories I heard growing up in church from my grandmother. But when he illustrated them, they look like the little gray aliens you see in sci-fi. From the 50s and 60s and 70s. And I've always been very, very fascinated by that. What a coincidence, you know? And you can look that up. I mean, it's pretty easily verified. And you know, so I will say this, though. In Florida, there's a lot of stories of abductions or attempted abductions. And we've had some sent into our show where folks describe walking out back because they heard something. And they walk out back, and then their next memory is like an out-of-body experience, and then they come to, like, in their kitchen, and they're violently ill. And then there was a season in time in the 80s where these stories were happening frequently, and this is before the internet. Folks aren't posting it. It's not really getting out there. And only through the lens of retrospection, you look back and go, oh, they were all telling the same story, but they lived 50, 60, 70 miles apart. And so that kind of stuff's hard to put that away, man. When you have like dozens of people experiencing the same things, and you have to go like, well, then what is happening?
And you also sometimes hear from these people or see their stories, and your immediately first thought for most people is like, oh, this is somebody's crazy. And then you hear them or see them, and you're like, they don't seem like somebody who's crazy. They seem like a very normal person.
The average person, the average person, and I'll say this to all your listeners, you've been gifted with a measure of faith and discernment that maybe you don't even realize. I think the average person can tell when someone's a kook. You can tell when someone is like trying to, like, and these are people that as they're telling their stories,
you can sense deception.
And they can sense deception. And they have nothing to gain from this.
100%.
A lot of these people have nothing to gain from this. And the only reason why it's public is because they called 911. You know, it had to be. It was made public in Florida through the Sunshine State laws and all those things. It's very transparent.
I agree with that. I think everybody has that ability. That's why sometimes you feel that ick when you have like a scummy salesman or like you know, you see somebody like on social media trying to be somebody that they're not, and it makes you feel uncomfortable. It's because you have that sense of like, oh, this person isn't being who they truly are. They're lying. You know, there's deception there. And I do think we all have that. And I think that's That's the unique thing about this. And there's two parts to this whole conversation that we started too, is that like the alien piece is a very like fantastical, interesting piece of it. There's a whole other side that it's almost a shame that these two get lumped together, because one of them I feel like we should have more answers about. And one of them is just fantastical to think about. I think there's a world where the aliens and that stuff's fun, but there's also a world where I do 100% believe our government or whatever like has this technology and this abilities that they're just not wanting us to figure out.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes for me like such an interesting piece, because it's like, man, how much is there out there that could just solve so many issues around the world? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Have we, and this is maybe a deep conversation, but it's like, I think about that. Like, have we cured cancer? And we're not willing. Do we have an idea of how we could stop world hunger? And we're just,
if there was zero money being made from cancer treatments, then I would say maybe we just haven't figured it out yet.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think there's a financial tie to most of these things. Like someone would say, like, why would the government make you want to throw up in your kitchen? Why wouldn't they? You know what I mean? Like, what do you mean? And it's not like we are the first ones to think this. It's not like all of a sudden we woke up and went, maybe we shouldn't trust the government. Like, this is the age old story, a tale as old as time.
And it also isn't us being like overly grumpy old white men either.
No,
it's just like I feel like it's becoming more and more apparent now. And I don't even think it's like a Trump thing or like a
I don't think it's
government
a party affiliated
a party
at all.
affiliated at all. I
no.
think it's just like it'll be interesting. You know, you and I have both lived in the age of like the internet and more information, and it's at our fingertips. And now AI is there. And so not only did we have access to fast information, but like now we don't even have to really search hard for it.
Yeah.
We can just ask it and it gives us the exact right answers.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see where we get to of like how much more knowledge we have about what's going on, how many more answers we want, in the next few years.
Yeah. And there was this guy, man, that, not that I to tie this back into a spiritual thing at all, but
please do.
There was a guy at the university who was president at the time. His name was Dr. Mark Rutland.
Yeah, I remember.
And he said one time, someone asked him about dinosaurs, and when we get to heaven, can we ask about dinosaurs, whatever? And he goes into this long kind of speech about the wondrous, unimaginable glory of God, and describing God and through human terms and whatever. And at the end of this kind of lecture, he goes, long story short, I don't think you're going to care when you get there. I think you're going to be so overwhelmed by the glory of God that you won't care about dinosaurs. Whatever.
Yeah.
And I gently
that's a kind of good answer.
I gently disagreed with him only because it sounds fun for me to care about that. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
So, but I think when
it does.
Yeah. Now
right
it does.
Now it does.
Right. But I think from the human perspective, the human side of things is we want to know what's on the other side. We want to know what we don't know. I was at Disney with my kids the other day. They went to take a bathroom break, and I saw this employees only door. Immediately, I went through it. Only because I wanted to know what was on the other side.
Right.
It's a curiosity. I want to know. So I think for me, where it sits is I want to know. I don't have to know.
Yeah.
You know, it's fun to talk about with your homies on a podcast, or it's fun to talk about at nighttime when you're trying to go to sleep, with your spouse or whatever. But I just think when it comes to aliens and when it comes to the spiritual side, I think those are two sides of the same coin. And depending on where you sit, theologically, I think we're calling it the same thing. I think we're talking about the same thing, just calling it different names, Well,
and ultimately, I think it's good in the way that you do it, in a healthy way. It's good to ask questions.
Of course.
And to just be a little curious. And also, like we talked about from the beginning, to not take everything, I'd say to not take things like this like too seriously. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be the thing that you live and die on. Like if it's your faith, then yeah, I think you can take it pretty seriously. If it's something that you hold very dear, but just for fun stuff like this, like I feel like it's good to ask questions. Just because partly for my job, but also because I'm very interested in this lately. I've been like studying and reading up on like just the art of like conversation. And there's this guy who was like an FBI negotiator, and the type of questions you ask to people to get information, and not in like a harsh way, but just like the way you word certain things can help open up. And I have a coworker who does this really well, but it's interesting because the way you say certain things, you start to realize like, oh, wasn't a no. I just didn't ask it in the right way. Sure. You know what I mean? He went up to a rental car person and was just like, Yeah, I know this might like be the worst thing you've ever heard, but would it be crazy if like, I just have like this extra stuff. If I just had like a little bit size up, it's like, yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, they have the power to do that. It's just you're not asking it in the right way.
You're not asking the right way. Yeah.
But all that to say, it's interesting, like just to be asking the right questions or figuring out how to ask them. I think it's a healthy thing,
Yeah, and I agree, and I think twofold about this subject matter. And this is the great thing about getting two podcasters together is you don't need you don't need a layout for the show. It's just like here's some general interest. But I will say with these two topics, I think that every time the government starts floating disclosure, there's something else terrible they don't want us to look at.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't voluntarily give up secrets, right? So I think that is true. I think that there's other stuff they don't want us to know, and so they distract us with the alien stuff. The Wall Street Journal, I believe it was, or maybe the Washington Post, one of the two did this comprehensive investigation, and they came to the conclusion that it was like 9 out of 10 stories of UFOs were perpetuated by the government as a means of distracting the populace.
Crazy,
right?
Yeah,
which is insane, right? I think that's true. At the same time, I think there are instances of abductions or interactions that are spiritual. I think those two things exist. So I think there is a tech that's being hidden from us. And I do think that there are instances of spiritual entanglements that we don't quite understand.
Yeah.
Where I begin to lose the argument is when they go, yeah, well, the tech is given to us by demons, or the tech is given by angels. Then I'm like, okay, I don't know about that.
No, but I think if it would be, and just as like off the top of the dome here, like it would feel like if the government really didn't want us to know about any of that kind of stuff, it would be very convenient to continue to push the alien narrative.
100%.
It's like, oh, it's extraterrestrial. Like how could we know these things?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because then it puts them in the clear too of like, we don't have anything else to hide from you guys.
No, yeah, dude. And I'll say this, man, like there's a lot of ancient tales and myths and legends, Prometheus and fire, for example, right? The way ancient people described how we receive technology is almost always through the divine to some degree. So-and-so was having a discussion with this god and he taught him how to build a campfire, right? So I say that to say, I don't think it's beyond the realm of possibility that if there is some sort of spiritual entity pulling the strings in the upper echelons, that there hasn't been somewhere along the line knowledge gained that then led to technological advancements. Right. Yeah. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, man. Then we get into the territory of like, did a demon teach Oppenheimer how to make a bomb? You know what I mean? Who knows, bro?
Yeah.
But it's fun to talk about. And I think that, in this day and age, we almost have to have these kind of conversations to keep it lighthearted.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. But it's also, to keep it lighthearted and just have fun with it. But I do think there's also a healthy part of it, if there's like to not just be completely oblivious to everything that's going on in the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, like I said, conspiracy theories in general, and this is a vague topic, a very general topic, but they can get unfun. You pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Like the moment, I'll give you a great example. I mean, COVID's a perfect example of this, where we were people were just angry.
Yeah,
that's
100%.
not a fun conspiracy to talk about.
No,
not saying that you shouldn't talk about it.
Well, it's also because the
like,
only thing I think it's to the degree of like which you take this in. If you become this person that's like you're only listening to conspiracy podcasts, or you're only watching conspiracy shows,
right,
and like you consume this nonstop, then you become this very skeptical, angry because that's what most conspiracies are. It's like somebody is doing something against ultimately you in a way. And so it could make you a very frustrated and angry person.
Yeah, and I want to say this. I mean, like, look, I think everybody tries to always preface it with like, I'm not a crazy person, but but there are things that were once conspiracy that are now just true.
Sure. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we have to acknowledge some of those instances and go, hey, like these are a conspiracy is only a conspiracy in and around the time that the event happens. The further you get from it, then it just becomes all of a sudden like, oh, we always knew the government shot JFK. You know what I mean?
Dude,
like,
yeah.
it becomes more lackadaisical. Of course we knew these things, but at the time you would be disowned from society. Like if you were to float that idea.
Yeah.
And so I think you have to carry it with a gentleness. Like I don't recommend you going to Thanksgiving dinner this year and being like, hey, I think COVID was this or that and this. However, if you want to go to Thanksgiving dinner and go, aliens in the ocean, huh? safer topic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Your family might think you're crazy, but you're probably going to walk out of there with at least your relationship still intact. You know what I mean? These are the
not
fun
bringing
ones.
up JFK or Martin Luther King or anything
more recent. You know, just stay away from the recent and dive into the classics.
Dude, yeah. It's a fun conversation, man. I love like just kind of diving into it and thinking a little bit deeper. I do think there was one that I watched recently that was on Martin Luther King actually. And there's just interesting stuff where you're like, huh. Like, you know what I mean? If you're the kind of person where you just want to take everything at like face value of what your history book read or like showed you or whatever, then all power to you. But if you just want to like find out a couple extra facts, you might be left thinking like, huh, that's unique. I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah, well, dude, 100%. And the difference between modern age and the 80s is, you know, if you saw something on the news that made you go, huh, you know, I mean, you might talk to your buddy about it in the garage,
but you wouldn't see it again
over a beer. But like, you never, that's the end of it, right?
Yeah.
Now it's like so commonplace that it's like, hey, what are you doing? Do you want to record a whole episode talking about, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
Like that's how far we've kind of come, and the general population is now having more conversations about it. And I just think it, like you said, I think it is healthy to have the conversations. I think it's healthy to not just take everything the government says at face value. You know what I mean? Like they have a track record of not putting people first, and that's every administration, not just any of the recent ones. But yeah, when it comes to aliens, man, I think it's a lot less kooky to talk about it. I mean, my mom's talking about it. People who are just very normal public shoppers.
Yeah, it's become a very normal thing now. It's not the cookies like it used to be when I was a kid. You saw the like newspapers, those fake newspapers at Publix and all that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Bat Boy.
Bat Boy and all that stuff. Those are the people that believe that. Now it feels like, oh, this is actually kind of main news now. Like people just chat about it. You know,
and the casualness, man. I saw a tweet this is an old tweet, but it was, you know, if my friends and I stumbled upon ET, we would kill it with a hammer. Like that's so true. Like there would be no shock and awe. It would just be, oh, there's an alien. What are we doing to it? You know, or are we, you know? And so I think, you know, every time I see a conspiracy video online, the comments are always like, "Sweet, do I gotta pay my bill still? Do I gotta go to work tomorrow?" You know what I mean? People just care about their groceries, dude. Like,
but that is a great place to actually like land the plane on this whole conversation too. Is like, if you're listening to this and we're riling you up about like conspiracy theories, it's fun. Look into them, ask questions. But at the end of the day, like, your life can still be great. Even if the government isn't batting 1,000, even if they're not telling you everything, even if there may be some weird anomalies in the water that are traveling 200 miles an hour. Like, you still can have a family that loves you and kids that want to play with you and, you know, go to a job and enjoy it. Like, you can still do all those things and God can be good to you and still bless your life. And you don't have to be like angry person who needs to figure out how to overthrow the government.
But there's one dude listening to this, like in a shack at the
finally.
He's just like, I finally Cantrell saying what I need to hear.
It's like there's like the whole base is like in Central Florida, and there's that one guy in Montana that's just like, I need this.
Well, I mean, brother, I got bad news for you. I mean, you're on a list just for covering the topics now. You know what I mean? Like you're now a part of the resistance. Like,
it's probably true. It is so true, dude. Oh, dude. Well, thank you so much, man. I always love chatting, man. And we'll have to do this again so that you can officially be outnumbered by John Mott and be the most long-standing guest on the show.
Well, I appreciate it, and I still won't pick a side on any topic. So just, you know, I'm going to stay as middle of the road as I can.
I love it. God bless.
See you, bro.